the Lincoln Project consists of never Trump Republicans, many of whom are very much in favor of engaging in all sorts of wars abroad. Many of them were supportive of the war in Iraq. These are people who are not progressives, they're not even liberals, but they do hate Trump. Now, I bring this up because as soon as the New York Times published an article essentially sharing what the intel community says is evidence that Russia was paying the Taliban a bounty for US troops in Afghanistan, all of a sudden you have this highly produced ad ready to go by the Lincoln Project to attack Donald Trump for failing to do anything about it, failing to confront Russia. I want to show you that ad and then we'll discuss.
In the last year, flag-draped coffins have returned from Afghanistan. Now we know Vladimir Putin pays a bounty for the murder of American soldiers. Donald Trump knows too and does nothing. Putin pays the Taliban cash to slaughter our men and women in uniform. And Trump is silent, weak, controlled. Instead of condemnation, he insists Russia be treated as our equal. Instead of retaliation, he invites Putin to America. When Trump tells you he stands by the troops, he's right. Just not our troops.
Look, Cenk, I will say it is fascinating to see, just that very pro-conflict messaging and how it seems to be supported by people on the left. I'm not talking about leftists, I'm talking about Democratic voters who absolutely hate Trump. And I get it, I hate Trump, but just automatically latching onto this messaging by right wingers who have a vested interest in conflict abroad. We just need to be careful. That's all I'm saying. And by the way, the Lincoln Project, we've given them credit because they're Republicans and Republicans know how to put together effective ads. They're vicious. And when it comes to Trump, I enjoy the viciousness. But at the same time, you do have to take a step back and realize that just recently the Lincoln Project was like boasting a picture of Dick Cheney wearing a mask. Like, oh, look at Dick Cheney, what a hero. He's really sticking it to Trump by wearing a mask. And I'm like, oh yeah, Lincoln Project. Don't really like those people, like some of their ads, but don't like the people.
Yeah. Well, it's possible that here comes the turn. And so beware of neocons bearing gifts. So no, Dick Cheney is not part of the resistance. And if he is, well, then it means nothing at all. Yes, they have vicious ads because they're Republicans and we appreciate that. Wouldn't it be amazing if Democrats did something vicious to Republicans as opposed to progressives?
Definitely.
Like when they're up against progressives, they'll lie, they'll smear, they'll attack, they'll be absolutely ferocious. Against Republicans, they're like, oh, please, other Republicans help us. We don't know how to do ads, Lincoln Project, please help, right? So now Lincoln Project staffed by some of the worst people in the establishment. Yes, I've enjoyed their ads. I even enjoyed that ad as a form of entertainment. But two things to look out for in that ad. Number one, Putin killed our troops is not confirmed. Trump knew about it is not confirmed. If you had me put down a bet, I would bet that Trump did know about it, but it's not confirmed. And then more importantly, in the middle there they go, and he did nothing to retaliate. A reference to retaliation.
Not good.
No. It's one thing when you're putting out devastating ads showing Donald Trump, Trump's weakness, and and I'm in a unique situation here. I'm in none of the camps. I think that Trump did collude with the Russians, but not about the election. I think that he has financial ties to them. He always has. I think he's totally controlled by the Russians, but not in any way that Rachel Maddow or MSNBC has said or Adam Schiff has said. And it drives me nuts that they will not look into Deutsche Bank and the money that Trump has taken from the Russians. But so I wouldn't be surprised at all that he heard the news and he's like, troops, I don't care about our troops. I care about my boss Putin. But that hasn't been confirmed in this case. And even if it were confirmed, would I be in favor of retaliation? Well, it depends on what you mean. They're neocons. Would it retaliate against Russia? One of the biggest nuclear powers on the planet. How, right? We'd have to be extraordinarily careful about that. It's not to say that you do nothing, but I certainly wouldn't trust the neocons to get that balance right. In fact, I wouldn't want them anywhere near that decision.
And this is such a perfect way to frame foreign policy at a time when there's a growing number of people who are demanding not only to defund the police, but to defund the Pentagon, because oftentimes a lot of the military weaponry that the Pentagon acquires through private contractors ends up getting transferred over to local police departments. And oh wow, would you look at this? Now you have Mitch McConnell seizing on this opportunity to say that we need to protect the resources that are available to the Pentagon. In a statement in response to questions, Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, the majority leader, said he had long warned about Russia's work to undermine American interests in the Middle East and Southwest Asia, and noted that he wrote an amendment last year rebuking Trump's withdrawal of forces from Syria and Afghanistan. And he also wrote the following: the United States needs to prioritize defense resources, maintain a sufficient regional military presence, and continue to impose serious consequences on those who threaten us and our allies, like our strikes in Syria and Afghanistan against ISIS, the Taliban, and Russian mercenary forces that threatened our partners. So just be aware.
Yeah, so look, one thing that the Republicans never co-signed on to with Donald Trump's agenda was Trump at least pretended to be against wars in the Middle East and aggressive wars overall. We don't really believe that that's necessarily the case given his actions. But Mitch McConnell, the neocons, the rest of the Republican Party never agreed to that. They love war. They can't get enough of war. So that's partly what I mean by here comes the turn. It's not just the Lincoln Project turning towards their actual agenda, but it's the Republican Party now beginning to turn towards their agenda of as soon as Trump is gone, we're gonna go back to over the top warmongering. And we're gonna do it not in the haphazard, ridiculous way that Trump has done, but systematically go back to lying about intelligence, provoking our people in all across the world, and try to build up a case for unnecessary wars. That is what the Republican Party is. It's at the very core of the Republican Party, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going back to.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.